The other day I was at the library browsing around, lamenting how I can't read, and I came across this book. It stood out to me because number one, it's mostly pictures, and number two, it's about my idol, Beatrix. And it reminded me that I promised to learn to illustrate my book. Now that video only got 29 views, but I have 21 followers. So at least 1% of you guys saw that. So I had to stay true to my word, man, or girls, or whatever. Now I am very familiar with Beatrix Potter's work. Like, I have her illustrations in basically every one of my junk journals, but I had no idea the amount of studies of landscapes and even dead animals it took to get to that point. Her watercolor ink work is probably the best out there, and today I'm going to be learning how to recreate it. I love the ink work, particularly in these 3 paintings, but this one stands out the most to me, so it's going to be my inspiration throughout the video. So let's get to it. In all the YouTube videos I watched, they're using this fancy ink pen, but I have major trust issues, so we're using a pen that I know works and won't bleed into my watercolor. Now, I already had the sketch done, so all I had to do was start, which is the scariest part for me. And you can just see how unsure my pen strokes are. I have done pen work before, but this felt just different. Since the ink work is so important to be just part of the style, I felt like there was so much pressure to not mess it up, which just made me mess it up. And filming it with my other hand and the blaring bad violin music was probably not helping either. I was at a coffee shop, by the way. But to be honest, I was anxious about a lot of editing, so overall, it was just not a good start. I'm at a park right now. I went for a walk. It's just like crazy how one little seed of doubt can just like corrupt your whole life. I was at a coffee shop trying to work on this painting, and my friend was like, "Are you okay? Your hands are shaking." I didn't realize my hands were shaking, and I didn't even understand why I felt so anxious. But to be honest, I've been really doubting God lately, especially when it comes to college. I've just been freaking out by a lot of different things about my dyslexia and chronic illness. Like, I know this video is about artwork, but Jesus died on the cross and saved my soul. So everything I do, you can either glorify him or it cannot. And every little saying is affected by God's love and how much I trust him, if that makes sense. And today, Satan is not winning. And I know today is going to be a good painting day, and I know I'm done with this. I'm done with this fear. I'm done with living my life like this right now. Yeah, that was a lot, but I'm just going to take a breather. I'm going to go on a walk. Well, I'm already been on a walk, but I'm going to walk back to the coffee shop. Right now I'm at a park. It's next to the coffee shop. I'm going to walk back, and I'm going to finish this painting. I'm going to do this. At this point, I was running out of time to paint. The coffee shop was closing in 3 hours, so there was no time to be anxious, so I picked up my paintbrush, turned on my audiobook, and got back to it. Beatrix Potter relies on her ink work for her darker values, but she's very particular where she places the ink work, and let's just say I was not being that careful. I left open spaces to fill in after the watercolor work in hopes to maybe fix that. So the result of that was more of a sketchy look, which I didn't hate, but I also didn't love. But no matter, because I had no time to waste, so we're going straight into the watercolor work. Now, this is not a technique of Beatrix Potter, but in the YouTube tutorials I watched, people were doing like a layer of tea to give it an old-fashioned look, and it reminded me how I turn my yellow saturation up in like all my videos, so I thought, what if I did the same thing for my watercolor work and give it a base layer of yellow? And I actually loved it so much I went back and added more yellow. My book starts in spring and ends during late summer, and it's a young adult, so it gives off a very hazy, dreamlike vibe. So that's what I was going for. Now I'm going with Payne's Gray, which is probably my second favorite color. Now there's not a lot of yellow tones in Beatrix Potter's work, and definitely not Payne's Gray. So at this point, it didn't look anything like her work. And as soon as I started working on the grass, I just knew I was not doing the technique right. So at 7 o'clock, the end of the painting day, I was feeling kind of disappointed with my work. So when I got to my grandma's, instead of watching the movie with my family, I decided to keep pushing on with my painting. At this point, I began to realize that less is more, especially when you're trying to do Beatrix Potter's techniques. I was trying to be light with the shadow work. I used Payne's Gray for the shadows, trying to balance everything out, but honestly I still had no idea what I was doing. But even though I messed up the line work for the watercolor palette especially, I actually really enjoyed painting it, and I love the gradient on this like sketchbook I did. But at the end of the night, it still just looked really messy and not in a sketchy artsy way. And to be honest, I did not feel like painting the next day, and I didn't film the process of the jeans because I really thought I was going to mess them up, but they actually turned out really good. Don't mind the screams, my siblings are watching Boy Meets World. If you know, you know. I got a decent amount done outside, but it wasn't until I came inside when I really got into the zone. or whatever the word is. I had no idea what to do with the soda can in the book, and to be honest, it's probably the weakest part of this painting, but it was whatever. It still didn't have enough of the pen work like Beatrix Potter's paintings, so I went back again with the pen to add my final finishing touches. This really didn't turn out anything like Beatrix Potter's paintings, but I'm actually okay with that. I definitely think I went a little overboard with the yellow tones, and that's why it's more of a darker feel, but now I know for next time. I think that's really the whole point of this challenge, is just to learn. And look at it beside my hand, it is so tiny, and even though there are so many imperfections and lazy line work, I still had fun, and I think I am slowly but surely understanding that is the point of artwork. So I will see you in my next one. Bye.